guys, welcome back to Bloom TV. Today I am going to do my 2014 reading year in review video, and I'm just going to discuss kind of what I achieved reading wise in 2014 and kind of what changed in my reading, and just some general overviews. And like, because I read a lot of new genres this year, I really think I developed my reading taste a lot, so I just wanted to discuss that with you guys. And this is going to be the first in quite a few videos where I'm going back over 2014 and also doing lots of videos about my reading goals and like things that are coming out in 2015, and this is going to be the first one. So I just wanted to first talk about my Goodreads goal, and I changed this quite a few times this year. In January I decided that I would try and read 60 books, because that was kind of, I was like, oh, 100 might be a bit too many, stupidly, I don't know why I thought that. And so I was like, 60 is a good number because 50 sounds a bit less, and like that was kind of the number my friends were doing. I reached 60 books in about May, or even I think, yeah, May or June. And then I decided that since I had like quite a long summer, I would have to move it, so I put it up to 100 books. I think in possibly August or September I hit 100 books. I decided to change it yet again to 150 books, and that's where it stayed for the rest of the year, and that is what I accomplished. And at the moment I have read 162 books in the whole of 2014, and I am so impressed. I read over 100 books of my original goal, and I'm just really proud of that. And I know some people may not have read as much as that, and I know some people have read like crazy amounts, like 250 books. I'm sure there's at least someone I'm friends with on Goodreads who's read that much, and I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, kind of towards that kind of crazy level of scale of reading. But I have had a lot of time to read. I did have a long summer. I do like make time for reading. If I'm not doing other work or I'm not doing things, I make time for reading. That's like my main hobby, apart from like other creative things. So it kind of balances out, and I'm really happy with it. I'm so happy I reached 150. That was the ultimate goal. And it will be a lot smaller though next year, because next year I'm going off to university, but I'll discuss that in my 2015 reading goals. And now I just want to talk about kind of some new genres that I read this year. This year was the year of new genres. I read some really fantastic books, and there's kind of main two genres that I branched out into, other than my usual kind of YA contemporary, YA paranormal, bit of adult lit in there, some classics kind of dispersed in there. The main new genres I read were high fantasy, which is kind of put into this book here, kind of symbolised by this book, and new adult, which is symbolised by this book. And this year, these were like the first two books that got me into these genres, and I decided that this year was the year I was going to read the Song of Ice and Fire series, because I really wanted to start reading high fantasy, and it's something that's always been in my life. I grew up with Lord of the Rings being quite a constant. My mum has a massive obsession. So it wasn't a really new thing for me, but it definitely was something that I hadn't really read much of. Like I'd read kind of quite a few YA fantasy books and I really enjoyed them, but this is kind of the first, I don't know, adult high fantasy book I read, or epic fantasy. I really don't know the difference. I should probably educate myself on that. This is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, and it is called The Final Empire. I think I read this back in April, and on the recommendation of my local bookseller, over whether to read this first or Game of Thrones. And he said that I should probably read this, and it was so glad he recommended this to me. And I'd seen it a couple of times on BookTube, but it was only after I read it that I realised how many people were reading it. Not trying to make myself out to be a hipster, just that is literally how it worked, and the YouTube videos I saw. But this is so good. I'm really glad I read it, and I'd really recommend this as a good kind of book to get into that genre. And then the other genre I started was new adult, and not started but read more of, started reading. This is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. I read this in May or June, I believe. kind of the months are kind of blurred into things, but it was definitely in the summer, early summer months. And I really love this, and although I haven't read much new adult since then, I have read another one of Colleen Hoover's books. I read some Jamie Maguire, wasn't a massive fan, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people love her, she just wasn't for me. And I read some Tamara Webber as well, and it's just a genre that I really love and really want to continue reading from in 2015, and this was the book that started this. I really loved Maybe Someday. It was a really good book. And I also read quite a lot more like YA fantasy, and this is kind of symbolised by this book, The Winner's Curse by Marie Rutkarsky. I can't say that name at all, I'm so sorry. I always think it's got a W in it, and it hasn't. But this really kind of emphasised the kind of YA fantasy I read, the Throne of Glass series. The first two books, I have yet to read the third one because I'm going to wait till I get it for Christmas. And I read quite a lot of other YA fantasy books, and I've really got into that genre, like YA high fantasy / urban fantasy, and it's something that I really am really keen on reading more of in 2015. I'm definitely one of my new favourite genres. And 2015 was also the year of me reading more poetry, and this is again symbolised by this book. This is a collection of poetry, and it's New Selected Poems by Carol Ann Duffy. This is a reprint of, I think it's Selected Poems. That this anthology has been out for quite a long time. It's the kind of the student one that most kind of exam boards use if you're studying Duffy. And if you don't know, you probably have a similar thing in your country, but in Britain we have the Poet Laureate, and it even says here, it says Poet Laureate. Carol Ann Duffy is our current, or was our Poet Laureate. I'm really not good on these things, but she was, or currently is, our Poet Laureate in Britain, and this anthology has, I think, most poems, like quite a few poems from each of her collections. So it says here 1984 to 2004. Highly recommend it. I really want to pick up some of her like individual anthologies as well, but poetry is something that is a bit more expensive, but it is definitely worth it. And I think I really discovered that I had a really excellent poetry teacher for my AS class, and she was the one that really made me love poetry. Before then I'd kind of been a bit iffy about it, but reading this really changed my mind completely, and I'd really highly recommend it, especially if you're interested in feminism and kind of feminism in literature. I would highly recommend Carol Ann Duffy. She also has some LGBTQ things in there as well. This is excellent, and I just really highly recommend it, and I have so many favourites in this, but I think my favourite is Mrs. Darwin. I'm not going to find it now, but that is a fabulous poem, but very short. And then this is also the year where I read some really excellent classics. I have always been a bit of a, not classics reader, but I kind of but like in my tween years or like early teenage years, I read a lot of Jane Austen. That's like my favourite classic author. I really love Jane Austen, if you can't tell by my previous videos. She is excellent. I really love her. I really love the Regency period as a whole, and it's something I'm really interested in, and I do a lot of studying around. And this year I kind of branched out a bit, and I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte in March, I believe, because I bought it in foils and read it, and it is one of my favourite classics. I love this so much. It is a brilliant book, and if you don't read a lot of classics, I'd really recommend this one. The writing is very easy to read. I found it really readable and very kind of, I know with some classics the language is quite archaic and quite dated. Sorry, just using the word archaic makes me sound, I don't know, archaic in itself, but anyway, enough of me being silly. This is such a readable classic, and it's so, I think so many people can relate to Jane. I found that I really related to her, especially maybe if you love books, I think, and it is just a really excellent book, and I really recommend it. I was saying to my mum, like, you really need to read this. She was kind of put off, and I was like, no, it's so readable, like, because she didn't enjoy Wuthering Heights as much. I was like, no, it's really readable, and it kind of does look thicker. It's like, yeah, it's like 500 pages, but it's my edition anyway, but it is so enjoyable, and I'd really highly recommend it. And I also read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This was the year which I discovered my love for Oscar Wilde. I have now read some more of his plays. I've seen one of his plays live, which was amazing. I've read his only novel. I've read some of his poetry. He's awesome. I really love him. I love his writing. He's just so witty, and I really enjoyed this, and it was my other favourite classic of the year. And I'd really highly recommend this as well, because it's really funny, and I feel like it's kind of that witty writing that you do kind of see in Jane Austen. And this one's really short as well. I flew through this in like 2 days, so I'd highly recommend it. And then the final kind of thing I'm going to talk about is discovering new series, and the one that I don't have with me, well, I do, but I don't have it with me right now, it's on my bookshelf kind of split up, is the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. I already love The Immortal Instruments, so this year was a year of me reading all her other books, i.e. The Infernal Devices, which I hadn't read before, and they are now one of my favourite series. I love it. It is beautiful. If you are put off reading it for some unknown reason, and if you've enjoyed The Mortal Instruments and you haven't read The Infernal Devices yet, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but you need to get on it right now. Like, get them from the library or something. They're just so good in all the feels. Highly recommend. But the other series that I really fell in love with this year is The Parasol Protectorate by Gail Carriger. You guys knew this was going to be in here. This is like my new favourite series. Gail Carriger is one of my new favourite people. I kind of stalk her blog. It's kind of embarrassing. I just really enjoy looking at her blog. I think she on her blog she is presented as one of the loveliest people. The way she responds to fans is just so nice, and she is just really lovely, and like I really want to meet her just at a book signing or something, because she seems like she'd be a really nice person to meet. And this series is fabulous. I love it so much. It's made me want to read more steampunk books, which I haven't really read before. New genre. And it's just made me want to read more historical kind of paranormal books, really. And Gail Carriger, you are a star. And if you have not read these books and you think that you'd kind of like them, get them now. Just read them. I will end up doing a series review of this, I promise. And I just really love it, and I'm going to have to ration all her books until like the next ones come out, because I can't deal without a bit of Gail Carriger each month. So that was my 2014 reading year in review. Tell me what your kind of year was like in reading, kind of what new genres did you discover? Did you kind of stick to the same genres? Did you read any awesome books? Also, I must mention that at the beginning of 2014, this was like my fail of the year. I decided that it would be a good idea to read, and I set myself the challenge or target of reading 10 non-fiction books. Did that happen? No, I probably read about 1, if that. I read kind of on and off non-fiction books for like class and stuff, but really didn't accomplish that. And next year I have set myself, this will be in my 2015 reading goals, but I am setting myself that, not the same challenge, but a similar challenge yet again, because I really feel like it's something I should read more of, but completely failed on that one this year. So I thought I'd just mention it quickly as a bit of a downer, but otherwise I had a really brilliant year, and I hope you guys did too. I'll see you all soon with another video. Bye!